Hello, students. As we get to the end of our discussion of forms of business ownership, when we talked about sole proprietorships, we talked about general partnerships and limited partnerships, we talked about C corporations and subchapter S corporations, and we talked about limited liability companies, also known as LLCs. But some of you may be saying, well, wait a minute. What about franchises? How come we never talked about franchises? I hear a lot of talk about franchises, and I didn't hear anything about that in forms of business ownership. Well, the reason why we did not talk about franchises until now, when we're talking about forms of business ownership, is because a franchise is not a form of business ownership. In fact, a franchise could be owned as a sole proprietorship or a partnership or an LLC or a corporation. It's usually owned as a corporation, but the franchise itself is not a form of business ownership. What it is it is a license or a permission that you buy from someone who already has an established model or a track record of success, a business model that's successful. So if you were going to start a hamburger stand, you could invent the whole thing from scratch. You could come up with your own secret sauce, your own advertising, your own branding, your own plan for where to locate the store, and it would be very difficult to come up with a proven model of success from the start. You're reinventing the wheel from scratch. But if you want to vastly increase your probability of success in opening a hamburger stand, then you go to someone like McDonald's or Wendy's or Jack in the Box, and you buy from them a license, a franchise to run a business which is exactly like theirs. And the way that you do that, you could own it in any of the forms of business ownership that we talked about, but it is not a form of business ownership. It's a license that you buy. And then when you buy that, then your probability of being successful, if you follow the rules that they give you, it goes way up. The key things about a franchise, though, are the original contract, the franchise agreement, because in there will be all of the rules that you must obey in order to protect the franchisor, that is, the people who created the business model. They have a vested interest and protecting the uniformity of their product, so that no matter where a guy travels throughout the United States, if he stops for a Big Mac at McDonald's, at Big Mac and fries, he knows exactly what that Big Mac is going to taste like. He knows what the secret sauce is going to taste like. He knows what the fries are going to taste like, and that's what he wants. He wants some uniformity, and that's what McDonald's wants. And that's why you have very little creativity, flexibility in owning a franchise. You get the benefit of a proven track record of success in that business, but in exchange for that, you give up much of your freedom of decision making with regard to creativity and flexibility. You must be a team player in order to be a successful franchise owner. So if you don't like following rules and playing in accordance with the team rules and contributing to the common team advertising, then a franchise is not for you. But if you're thinking about a franchise, get a copy of the franchise contract and go through that with a lawyer with a fine-tooth comb, because you must follow all the rules of the franchisor or you will lose your franchise. One of the famous cases about that that we cover in the courses here in Sierra College is a pizza case. I think it was Round Table Pizza, but I could be wrong. I'm working from memory today. But what happened was there was a guy that bought a, let's say, hypothetically, a Round Table Pizza franchise, and he was kind of struggling. It was a downtime in the economy, and maybe his was not in the best of neighborhoods, and so he was getting by, but he was pretty skinny on the profits and struggling a bit. And the terms of the franchise agreement said, in order to maintain the uniformity of the quality and the taste of a Round Table Pizza, no matter where you go, the franchisees are required to buy all of their pizza dough and all of their cheese and all of their pepperoni directly from the Pizza Hut headquarters. Well, there was a problem with that because this guy who owned this local franchise discovered that if he went down the street a block or two to the local deli, he could buy the same quality or better of cheese and pepperoni at a much lower price. And so he began to cheat and buy his cheese and his pepperoni not from Round Table Pizza headquarters, but from the local deli. And that made his costs go down and his profits go up. Well, when Round Table Pizza found out about this, they told him, you know, if you don't stop that, we're going to revoke your franchise. You're going to lose the franchise. And the pizza owner, the local owner, the franchisee said, that's no fair. You're charging me too high a price for this stuff and you're eating up my profit margin. I get the same quality or better right down the street for a lower price. How's that hurt you? Well, it went to court, and the court said, well, maybe you can get that stuff for a lower price somewhere else, but the original contract you signed with Round Table said that you agreed that you were going to buy all of your cheese and pepperoni directly from the headquarters, and even if it costs you a higher price, you must obey the rules of the franchise, because those people in charge of the franchise have a vested interest in maintaining the uniformity of their product all across the nation. And you're breaking those rules, so you've either got to get back into compliance or you lose your franchise. So that was the ruling of the court. So you're going to have to obey the rules if you're going to buy a franchise, which is not a form of business ownership. It's just a license. One final interesting note about that Round Table Pizza case: when that went all the way up to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, State Supreme Court, I don't remember what the higher court, there was one judge who wrote a dissenting opinion. And it was really interesting because he said, you know, I agree that the franchisee should have to obey the rules of the franchise contract, but I'm concerned about the possibility that these giant chain restaurants eventually end up controlling such a huge percentage of the food marketplace in things like cheese and pepperoni that they will begin to have a monopolistic control over the supply and the price of those kinds of materials in the marketplace. And if you think that judge was exaggerating, then I want to tell you a little story, just real quick, about what happened one year with McDonald's. One year, McDonald's decided they were going to have a special holiday sandwich that was going to be turkey with a side little cup of cranberry sauce. But they had to cancel their plans to do that because when they calculated how much cranberry sauce McDonald's would need to put a little cup of cranberry sauce with each one of their turkey sandwiches, it turned out to be virtually all of the cranberry sauce that was available anywhere in the world. So as franchises continue to grow, if they do continue to grow after the current coronavirus thing, maybe they won't, but if they continue to grow, at some point we may need to reconsider at least whether or not franchises can control the food supply. But until then, just know if you want to buy a franchise, you got to be a team player and know that a franchise is not a form of business ownership.